Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're going to tackle how learning itself is changing, in this crazy digital world.
Yeah, things are moving fast.
Big time. So, we're looking at this theory called connectivism, and our main guide is this article from way back in 2005. Connectivism, a learning theory for the digital age by George Siemens.
Classic article.
It really is. It's got me thinking differently about how the internet, well, kind of forces us to rethink some stuff about how we learn.
Oh, absolutely.
Siemens.
Starts right off the bat highlighting how much faster knowledge changes now.
Yeah, like back in the day, what you learned could last a career, right?
Pretty much. But now, forget about it. The whole information landscape is totally different.
Totally. He uses this term half-life of knowledge, which, I don't know, it just stuck with me.
Yeah, it's about how long it takes for half of what we know to become, outdated.
Right. And it just keeps getting shorter, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The American Society for Training and Documentation, they estimated that knowledge was doubling every 18 months. Can you imagine what that means for, well, everything, really?
That's mind-blowing. No wonder it feels like we can't keep up sometimes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It really is. And Siemens argues that, the traditional learning theories just weren't built for this kind of speed,
Right, like behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, all those.
Right.
They all focus on how an individual processes information.
Internally, yeah.
Right, but what happens when so much learning is, outside of us?
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's like those theories assume we're all just brains in jars trying to absorb everything. It's more about knowing how to find information quickly and then, knowing if it's good information.
That's a core principle of connectivism.
Okay.
Siemens uses this analogy. It's so good. He says the pipe is more important than the content flowing through it. Meaning the ability to access and evaluate information, that's what becomes, the key skill.
Right. Think about how we Google something now versus, trying to remember every detail.
Oh,
Like our brains are turning into these super efficient search engines.
in a way, yeah.
So if that's true, what makes a good learner in this view?
Well, connectivism highlights a few things.
Okay.
First, recognizing that knowledge is diverse. No single source has the whole picture, right?
Right.
So strong learners look for lots of perspectives.
And can tell what's true, what's not.
Exactly, which is so important now with the internet.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like a constant battle of ideas out there.
It is. But connectivism doesn't shy away from that. It says learning happens precisely by connecting these different nodes of information.
These nodes.
Yeah. People, websites, databases, even appliances. It could be anything, really. Knowing where to find the information becomes more crucial than knowing it all yourself.
Okay, that's a very different way of thinking about intelligence.
Isn't it?
It really is. It's less about what you know and more about, how you connect to what's known.
Exactly.
But how do we keep up when what we need to know is constantly changing?
It's about nurturing those connections and pathways.
Okay.
So learning becomes this continuous process of making and maintaining those links.
Okay.
So that when what you know becomes obsolete, you're already connected to the next relevant thing.
But with so much information out there, how do we know what's important? How do we know what's just noise?
That's where the ability to see patterns and connections comes in. Being able to spot relationships between things that might seem totally unrelated.
Like connecting the dots.
Exactly, forming a bigger picture.
Right, seeing the forest for the trees, as they say.
Precisely. And connectivism goes even further. It says decision-making itself is part of learning.
Whoa, okay.
Because knowledge is always in motion, today's right answer might be wrong tomorrow.
That's true.
It's about adapting to new information and, being okay with not knowing everything.
This is really fascinating stuff. So learning isn't just about acquiring facts anymore.
Nope.
It's this dynamic, always evolving process.
It is. It's about understanding how knowledge flows, using the power of networks, and constantly adapting as things change around us.
So much to think about there, and it sounds like this idea of connectivism has implications beyond just the way we learn as individuals, right?
Oh, absolutely. Siemens himself goes into that.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Well, think about organizations, how they manage what they know.
Okay.
Companies spend so much effort trying to capture the knowledge they have, right?
Right, yeah.
But connectivism says it's not just about storing stuff in a database.
Right.
It's about connecting the right people to the right information at the right time.
Ah, so it's like creating this living network of knowledge where information flows freely and people learn from each other, almost like a hive mind.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Siemens compares information flow in an organization to oil in an industrial economy.
Wow, that's a powerful analogy.
Right. It's the vital resource that needs to be managed.
Yeah, I mean, in a knowledge economy, information is the oil, right?
Exactly. He even suggests using this thing called social network analysis
Oh, okay.
to map how knowledge flows within an organization.
Interesting.
And it turns out the people who are well connected, those hubs in the network, they're crucial.
For making it all work.
Exactly. It's about fostering those connections. So it's not just who you know, but how those connections help you learn and share what you know.
Right. The power of networking, not just for careers, but for knowledge itself.
Precisely. And this brings us back to Siemens' point about, how knowledge development is cyclical.
Okay.
It starts with the individual, then feeds into organizations, and then those organizations feed back into the network, which helps the individual. It's a loop.
It's a beautiful feedback loop, right?
Yeah. We're all contributing to this pool of knowledge, and how connected we are influences what we learn and what we contribute.
I like that.
Now, there's this fascinating research by Landauer and Dumas.
Okay.
They argue that people actually possess way more knowledge than they've been directly exposed to.
Wait, really? How's that possible?
Their idea is that there are so many, weak interrelations within different areas of knowledge that if we can tap into them, our learning just explodes.
So like connecting the dots between random ideas we've picked up?
Yeah, and suddenly realizing you know way more than you thought.
That's amazing.
It is. And Siemens even uses an example from John Seely Brown.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about how the internet can leverage the small efforts of many with the large efforts of few.
I like that. What kind of example does he use?
He describes this community college project,
Okay.
connecting senior citizens with elementary school kids in a mentoring program.
Oh, that's cool.
Just connecting those two groups created this amazing learning experience for both the kids and the seniors.
Wow. So even small connections can have a big impact.
Absolutely. So connectivism really is about seeing that learning isn't confined to the individual anymore.
Right. It's dynamic, interconnected, and thrives on networks and connections.
Exactly. It's about understanding how knowledge flows, leveraging the power of networks, and constantly adapting as things change around us.
This has been really eye-opening, and we've only just begun to unpack the real-world implications of connectivism. But before we dive deeper, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far.
Yeah, let's take a moment to think about how these ideas are already showing up in our own lives.
So we've talked a lot about what connectivism is, but how does it actually, impact our lives? I mean, beyond the theory, what can we take away from this?
Yeah, that's a great question. One area where connectivism really shines is leadership.
Okay, interesting.
In this world where knowledge is changing all the time, good leaders need to realize they don't have all the answers.
So it's less about being the all-knowing boss and more about fostering those connections, like we talked about, and getting people to collaborate.
Exactly. Connectivism suggests that successful leadership now, in the digital age, it's about creating that environment where information flows freely, where people value different perspectives and can learn from each other.
Right, so a leader becomes more like a gardener,
I like that.
tending to that network of knowledge.
Keeping those conditions right for things to grow.
Exactly, and it's not just about internal collaboration, right?
No, not at all.
Leaders need to be good at tapping into external networks, too.
Absolutely.
Connecting with experts outside the company, staying ahead of the curve.
Right, they have to model connectivism themselves.
Keep learning, keep expanding their own network.
Exactly. And speaking of networks, connectivism has a lot to say about how we consume media and information.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
We're bombarded with news and opinions constantly. It's tough to navigate.
You're telling me it feels like every website, every social media feed is screaming at me?
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
It really is. How do we figure out what's reliable,
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
Connectivism says we need to be more critical, more discerning about the information we take in.
So not just absorbing whatever pops up.
Right. It's about actively seeking out diverse sources,
Yeah.
evaluating their credibility, and connecting the dots ourselves.
So we're curating our own information diets.
Exactly. Making sure we get a balanced intake.
I like that.
And this ties back to connectivism's emphasis on patterns and connections.
Right.
It's not enough to just read a bunch of stuff or watch videos.
You have to be able to put it all together.
Right. Synthesize that information, draw our own conclusions.
So we each need to be our own librarian, in a way.
Yeah, I love that.
organizing and categorizing information, building our own little worlds of knowledge.
That's exactly what Siemens calls personal knowledge management.
Okay, cool.
It's about taking charge of our own learning journey,
Yeah.
building and maintaining those connections that
Yeah.
help us navigate this crazy information world.
And as technology keeps advancing, those skills are just going to be more and more important, right?
Oh, absolutely. You think about AI, how it's changing work,
Right.
the skills that connectivism emphasizes, like critical thinking, adapting, building networks, they're becoming essential.
It's the stuff AI can't do.
Exactly. Those human skills.
Right. AI can process all the information, but we still have to make sense of it
Connect the dots, see the bigger picture.
and lead the way with creativity.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
Connectivism isn't just about acquiring knowledge. It's about applying it in a world that's constantly changing.
Okay, yeah.
It's a shift from seeing learning as a destination to seeing it as a continuous journey.
It's the climb, not the summit.
Beautifully put. And one of the most inspiring things about connectivism is how it empowers individuals.
Okay, yeah, tell me more about that.
In the past, learning was seen as something that happened in formal institutions,
Right, schools, universities.
Yeah, controlled by experts, but connectivism flips that.
How so?
It says learning can happen anywhere, anytime, any way that works for you.
Okay.
It's about tapping into that vast network of knowledge out there and making it your own.
So we can all become masters of our own learning destiny.
Exactly. We're not limited by classrooms or curriculums anymore.
It's like a whole world becomes our classroom.
It really does.
Wow, that's exciting, but kind of scary too.
Yeah, it is. It makes me think about what Siemens said. Learning what we need for tomorrow is more important than what we know today.
That's a good one.
Right. The future belongs to those who can adapt, who are curious, eager to learn new things.
So it's less about cramming our heads with facts and more about developing those skills, that mindset to be flexible and, open to new ideas.
Exactly. It's about being able to plug into the network, find what we need, and adapt to whatever comes our way.
That's connectivism in action.
Exactly. It's a powerful way of thinking about learning in this digital world.
And it's a call to action, right? To embrace lifelong learning.
Absolutely.
This has been a really thought-provoking conversation, but before we go too far, let's take a moment, gather our thoughts, and see what else we can uncover about connectivism. We've really been digging deep into connectivism.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see how it all ties together, learning in our digital world.
And as we wrap up here, it strikes me that connectivism, it's more than just a theory.
I agree totally. It's like a mindset almost.
Right, a way of approaching the world with curiosity and like a willingness to see those connections.
Exactly, seeing how it all fits together.
That's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
It gives us the tools to take control of our own learning,
Right.
to curate our own knowledge and navigate this digital world with, confidence and a sense of purpose.
As we've been talking, I've been thinking about how many ways connectivism is already happening all around us.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about social media for a minute.
Okay.
We're constantly connecting, sharing ideas, learning from each other's experiences.
That's true. It's connectivism in action.
Right. Even if we don't always realize it.
Exactly.
And it's not just social media. Think about online communities,
Right. Forums for specific interests.
Yeah, people from all over coming together.
Sharing knowledge.
Collaborating, learning from each other.
And those communities, they're always changing, making new connections, creating new knowledge.
Right. Just like connectivism says, learning is dynamic. It self-organizes.
Exactly. And we're seeing these principles extend beyond just the digital world, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Think about the rise of co-working spaces, those collaborative work environments.
Right. People are recognizing the value of connecting, sharing ideas, learning from different perspectives.
It's like connectivism is becoming part of the fabric of how we work and learn.
Absolutely. And as we move further into this digital age, I think these trends are just going to accelerate.
Right. The lines between formal learning and informal learning, they're getting blurry.
Yeah. Cool.
And the possibilities for lifelong learning are just expanding.
It's an exciting time to be a learner.
It really is. But it can also be overwhelming, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
With so much information coming at us all the time, how do we even start? How do we cut through the noise?
That's where those core principles of connectivism come in.
Okay. Remind me.
Remember, it's not just about passively consuming information.
Right.
It's about actively making those connections.
Seeing in the pattern.
And developing those critical thinking skills so we can evaluate all that information.
So it's not just about being connected, it's about being smart about it.
Exactly. Thoughtful, intentional about who we connect with, what information we choose to engage with.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And this brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about your own personal learning network. The people, websites, books, resources,
Okay.
What are those connections that are shaping your understanding of the world?
That's a good question, one we should all be asking ourselves.
Right, because in this world where everything's changing so fast, those connections we make today, they're going to shape the learners we become tomorrow.
That's a great way to put it. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into connectivism.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has, and we hope this has sparked your curiosity, made you think about how this concept might be shaping your own learning journey.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, learning is an adventure, and it's the connections we make along the way that make it truly meaningful. So keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep learning.